Rick and Morty's had some real stinkers over the years. I mean, it's one of my favorite animated series of recent memory, but every season brings with it a couple episodes that feel out of place, over-the-top grotesque, or just plain boring. That's why today, we're going through every season of Rick and Morty and highlighting the absolute worst episode. And at the end, we'll rank all of those to figure out the bottom of the barrel for this show. Let's do it. Starting off with Season 1, we got a pretty solid slate of episodes, but one sticks out from the rest pretty obviously, and that's the pilot episode. Now, it establishes the world decently well, and it's by no means a bad episode, but going back to watch it now, the style and tone feel completely different from the rest of the show, and even this season. Rick's introduction is flat out awful, and portrays him to be a drastically different character than we've come to know. He's drunk off of his ass, okay, that's pretty normal, but the way he slurs and stutters through sentences is so dramatized, and I'm really glad they dialed it back moving forward. I can give it a pass for that though. You gotta test the waters, see what works, and find the identity for each of your characters and the world overall, and they did that very quickly, within a couple of episodes, but it does make watching this one a bit off-putting. The plot's not great either. The whole portal gun being dead thing just doesn't make sense when he just used it and could go back home, charge it, and then come back for the seeds. Seems like a lame excuse to make seed and butt jokes if you ask me, but I digress. It's the weakest of the season by a pretty wide margin, but we'll see a lot worse later on, don't you worry. Season 2's got another stacked lineup. It may be my favorite season of the entire show, which really says something. There's not a bad apple in the bunch. If I had to pick one though, it'd be episode 5, Get Swifty, and even this one has a lot going for it. The song Rick makes up is stupid, but very catchy, and seeing how the rest of the world reacts to these giant heads in the sky is a fun play on religion, and has some pretty hilarious moments. It also introduces the president, and while it takes a couple seasons for him to evolve into a regular and actually good character, his debut here isn't too bad. It's got some strong elements overall, but the middle of the episode definitely drags. The other contestants on the music show were boring, Ice-T's showing up out of nowhere felt a little forced, and him coming back to save the day at the end was a cop-out if I've ever seen one. Even Morty running off with the portal gun and reality hopping was just kind of bland, and overall, the premise for the episode stands out, but nothing about it is all that memorable. Besides, you gotta get Swifty. On to Season 3, there's quite a few more hiccups than the previous seasons, with dishonorable mentions going to Pickle Rick, which is a testament most people share at this point. It got over-memed and just isn't all that entertaining to begin with, and the ABCs of Beth, which keeps your attention a lot better, but is the first of the overly morbid and flat-out rancid concepts the show's played with, and it led to future disgusting episodes that we will be talking about later. The worst one, though, is Rick, Shuri, and Morty Date, the final episode of the season. To preface, Season 2's finale had a killer cliffhanger and went out with about the biggest bang possible, and this one completely 180s and feels lackluster even if it was smack dab in the middle of the season. It brings back the president, and the banter between him and Rick just isn't enjoyable. He refuses to give Morty a selfie, and the two are as stubborn as they come and do a full-on brawl through the White House to settle it. There's some neat ideas here and there throughout this battle, but the reasoning behind it is just flat out dumb. It also has Beth and Jerry getting back together, and even their B-plot is hard to watch. There's just nothing redeeming about this one plot-wise, besides setting up the family dynamic from previous seasons. It just super sucks because the gap between seasons 3 and 4 was larger than any other wait time, and this was the lamest conclusion to a season we ever got. As always though, there's some funny moments in here, and every time I go back to rewatch these, something new catches me off guard and earns a laugh, so it's not the worst watch, but believe me, we're getting there. Season 4 Rick and Morty is the mixed bag of all mixed bags. Half the damn season was underwhelming, the Time Crystal episode was not fun, and the heist one tries way too hard but still can't keep my attention, so it really comes down to 2. Now, the dragon episode is the easy choice. It is weird, and you have to pray your parents don't walk in while you're watching it, but I'll take entertaining discomfort over pure boredom, and that's precisely what Never Ricking Morty gives ya. Now, credit where it's due for a unique concept, and maybe I just had a bad first impression. I was watching it in the background and didn't know what the hell was happening, but even giving it my full attention, it's a poorly done episode. It's supposed to be a clever metaphor for linking together a bunch of random shit like the show does so often, but none of these one-offs are all that interesting. It's no Morty's Mind Blowers or Interdimensional Cable, and the overdeveloped meta rapping just makes it worse. Fourth wall breaks can be funny, yeah, but when the whole episode is just one big one, it loses any possible charm. Oh, and the ending revealing the full thing to be taking place within a toy the actual Rick and Morty have in their living room makes it feel even less satisfying. But we're not bottomed out yet. Oh no. Season 5 has some rough outings, and is home to the most controversial and downright filthy episode in the entire show. I don't even want to go too in-depth in the fear of being demonetized, but the story revolving around Morty doing typical teenager activities, and those activities coming to life and destroying the world is just fucking absurd. Rick not being able to put two and two together about the situation feels off, the underground horse tribe of chuds were shoehorned in there last minute and make things feel even more overly chaotic, and the giant space baby thing is abysmal. All of that said though, I'll defend it like I did the Dragon episode. It'll keep you entertained if you don't have a weak stomach and get past the initial shock value. Things are happening, and there's some really funny moments, and I'd watch it over one episode this season. Number 7, Gotron Jerisis Rickvangelon, or Rickvangelion, however you want to say it. The core of this premise isn't bad. Rick and the family getting Gotron robots and combining them to fight crime sounds like it'd be fun, but all the battling is done in these montages that feel anticlimactic and don't really go anywhere. The story's more about Summer becoming Rick's new favorite and Morty getting the shaft, and the way she's treating him throughout the episode feels so unwarranted and makes her super unlikable. Honestly, the whole family becomes insufferable to Morty, and it's very out of character, but they slowly get fired by Rick as he gets more and more in over his head, and he hires on some random anime-style characters to fill their roles, and surprise surprise, they turn on him. And instead of having one last climactic robo-battle, they pull in the giant inter-family baby to take down the Gotrons and save Rick. It really drags at certain points, and feels like it doesn't know what it wants to do with the concept, relying on a bunch of monologues and narration, so what you're left with is a bunch of characters you've grown to like being a bunch of assholes and an baby saving the day. This is the worst episode of the season. I'm done. Season 6 has some awesome episodes, and only a couple I'd consider bad, so it's the best one we've had here in a bit. The fortune cookie one feels like another Rick-dependent spray with the wildly uncomfortable premise, but Rick and Jerry working together for once is pretty refreshing and entertaining, so I'm gonna go with Full Meta Jack Rick. It's a follow-up to the worst episode in Season 4, and it somehow feels even lazier. Now, I do like that different plot devices have these superhero forms. Watching them all mess with the episode is pretty interesting, but the way everything gets set up and the tone used throughout is way too meta for my liking. Storylord comes back, and his motive, get this, is to find a motive. I'm sorry, that's not clever, and calling yourself out for it isn't either. That's just bad writing. And him meeting with the writer of the show and them working together feels even more forced, and just who thought this was a good idea? It's still got some alright moments. The opening sequence is one of the best in the show, but it goes too try-hard with it and falls flat where it matters most. Season 7's a really easy one for me. Now there's some bad episodes here, but none come close to episode 8, Rise of the Numericons. When the season first dropped, I up and skipped this episode, and only came back to watch it because I was desperate for more Rick and Morty episodes, and this just ain't it, Chief. It hardly even features the title characters. It's instead an expansion of the ending gag from Get Schwifty, which you might remember was the weak point of Season 2, and taking an unfunny joke this far flat out sucks. The letters are at war with the numbers, and they use it as an excuse to give Water T more screen time, make bad movie references, and even worse puns. There's really nothing redeeming about this episode, and I consider it to be the low point for the series as a whole. And last but not least, Season 8 has some not-so-favorable ones. Morty meeting back up with his Gazorpazorp son has a lot of missed potential, and the Rick, the Mort, and the Ugly didn't focus on our Rick and Morty, which I don't normally like, but I think they did okay with it, all things considered. The title of Worst Episode has got to go to The Last Temptation of Jerry, and for what it's worth, I like the idea of having an Easter episode. They introduce a bunch of cool lore, and making Jerry get possessed by the spirit of the Easter Bunny could have been fun, but instead, they bypassed the weird route and took it to fucking weird. Literally. The Rabid Bunny takes control of Jerry's body in a flat-out disgusting transformation, and his goal is to mind control people into having sex. points. I wish I were kidding. I really do. It's a hard watch, and when pinned against the rest of this season, it's definitely the lowest point. There's no other ones here that are all that gross or boring, so this easily takes the cake. Now to rank each of those episodes from best to worst, and at the top we've got Get Swifty. Like I said back in Season 2, the lineup was stacked, so no surprise here. One below that is Rick, Shuri, and Morty Date, a terrible season finale, but an alright standalone episode. Then the pilot, which is totally different with a bunch of plot holes, but still strong. Never Ricking Morty, it's where the show started to get too meta and boring, and that leads perfectly to full meta Jack Rick. Just that episode, but lazier. The Last Temptation of Jerry, grotesque, uncomfortable, and basically Rick-dependent spray with less jokes. Then second from the bottom, we got the Gotron episode. The main cast is unlikable, and it goes nowhere plot-wise. And number one, the worst episode in the full 8-season run of Rick and Morty so far is Rise of the Numericons, the movie. It hardly even feels like an episode of this show, and doesn't use the new characters and settings to do anything creative. It is bland, corny, and I find no joy watching it. With all that said though, which episode of Rick and Morty is your least favorite? Did I do any of these seasons a disservice? Please leave your takes in the comments down below. Also let me know which animated shows and movies you want to see more videos about. If this one's well received, I'd love to do more Rick and Morty videos in the future. In the meantime though, check out the video on screen now, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you later.